Like many people in Australia, over the past few weeks, our family has been engrossed in Lego Masters. Lego Masters is a show about building amazing Lego constructions. Now, 2020 marks the second season of the show, which follows an elimination format, and it's kind of reminiscent of reality TV shows like MasterChef, and it's on commercial TV. And these are some of the reasons that would make it overlooked in our place, but we do watch it, and we really enjoy it. We came a little late to Lego Masters, partly because we seldom watch commercial TV, I guess. And we started watching the show on the recommendation of some of the members in our congregation. In fact, it was people in their 70s and 80s that suggested we start watching it. And when our older members and our kids at Kids Club are raving about something, it's probably a good idea to give it a go, which we did. Now, alongside the slightly artificial reality-style TV format, there is a lot to like about Lego Masters. And even though there are eliminations, the vibe is overwhelmingly positive and supportive. The rivalries are humorous, not serious, and the host is constantly picking apart the format itself in a highly self-conscious way, which I like. But most of all, I like the show because in my life, Lego has been one of the few areas, one of the few mediums where I have been able to be artistically creative. As someone who struggles with drawing and painting and sculpture and pretty much all of the fine arts, as a child, Lego allowed me to explore and adapt and make art that I thought was cool. And even though it tended to have more wheels and wings and turret guns than my art teachers probably approved of, I thought it was pretty creative. And I reckon I'm not alone in that. I know that my nieces and my nephew have commandeered all available surfaces in their house to get building. Inspired by the new season of Lego Masters and combined with isolation, lots of parents are treading on Lego bricks, I believe. Without giving away too many spoilers, one thing that has marked this season is that many of the challenges in the show are based on the participants being given a single strong platform and one key idea to build from. So they get given a single platform and one key idea, and then they are left to their own devices, and they are encouraged to let their imaginations and skills go wild. Now, this simple frame, this simple platform might be a picture frame or a hanging brick or just an explosive charge. But a very simple single thing gives all the focus to what comes next. And from then on, it is truly remarkable to watch their creativity at work. I cannot recommend the show enough. Advertisement over. The reading for today comes from the letter in the Bible we call 1 Peter or 1 Peter. And looking back on my sermons for the last 20 years, this is probably the first time I have ever preached on 1 Peter. And there are lots of reasons for this. Firstly, it is a letter. And in general, I tend to preach on the Gospels or other parts of the Bible which are narratives, which are stories. Secondly, it is a short letter, which makes some important points, but most of these points are also covered in other parts of the New Testament by Paul and others. But perhaps the most significant reason that I don't preach from Peter is that I don't know it that well. So this week, prompted by isolation and the opportunity to reflect and do new things, I thought I would explore it. You see, 1 Peter, or 1 Peter, is one of those letters written in the tradition and name of the apostle, the disciple Peter. And it's written to encourage the Christians who are being persecuted in the eastern parts of the Roman Empire, especially in Asia Minor, which we now call Turkey. And because the persecutions of the Christian only really got going, at least by Rome, about 40 or so years after Jesus, we reckon that there's only a very small chance that Peter himself actually sat down and wrote the text. It has all sorts of Greek rhetorical flourishes and styles that would have been unusual for a Galilean fisherman. And so most scholars reckon that the person who wrote, or the group who wrote this letter, took ideas from Peter, or ideas from the churches that Peter founded, took some of his sermons maybe, and stitched them together to encourage and support the Christians who needed it. And the example of Peter was, I believe, a great help to them. For Peter was named the Rock by Jesus. And after going through periods of doubt and denial, Peter did become an unwavering apostle for the gospel. And he was almost certainly martyred for it. Here in chapter 2, we get this idea repeated. Drawing on some rich images from the Old Testament, we are reminded that Jesus is indeed like a rock that can't be moved, but he is also a rock that people will stumble upon, and that will probably make them angry. So if you are a Christian in the Roman Empire, or anywhere in the world at any time, if you are a Christian and you are persecuted because of your faith, remember that this is often a consequence of following Jesus. But take heart at the same time, because your faith is built on a firm foundation. Back to LEGO Masters for a second. In both seasons, there has been at least one team of engineers or people who design and build things for a living as part of the competition. And though these teams tend to do quite well because their designs are reliable and they have great skills, so far it has been the groups with more of an artistic flair that have produced the more amazing works. The solid foundations and good engineering is indeed needed, but it is imagination and craft that makes LEGO something special. Rereading the letter of Peter then, and thinking about Peter's experience, I can't avoid thinking that the conclusion of Peter's life was inspirational for the church because it brought together the confidence of a sure foundation with the willingness to try something risky new. Putting those things together, a sure foundation, but also creativity and risk and newness. Imagine a fisherman from a small rural village preaching sermons which challenged and inspired the people. And you can read these in Acts. And then going on to establish churches all the way to Rome. It is little wonder then that many Christians who came afterwards tried to follow his model. And in 1 Peter, we get this idea repeated as Jesus is identified as a sturdy stone, but also like spiritual milk, which needs to be tasted so that we know it's good. It's a strange combination of metaphors, of the stone and the milk, but it works, I reckon. There's been a tendency in many parts of the church over centuries to try and recreate a firm cornerstone in every part of our existence. We have recognized a solid foundation in the example of Jesus and then Peter who came afterwards. We have recognized a solid foundation in those who face persecution and trial with honesty and courage. And indeed, this is part of our faith. But it's not all of it. Because of our confidence that God is with us in the darkest parts of life, we are then able to explore and be creative and risk and try new things most of the time. You see, we have tasted life, seasoned with the hope of God in Jesus, and it is good. And not everyone will agree. For many, faith will remain a stumbling block. But people of faith are called to let ourselves and our imaginations go wild, because we know that our lives are built on sure foundations. We are able to do amazing things, and we are called to do amazing things. We are called to explore and follow our imaginations because we have a sure foundation. We are not called to make every part of our life into a solid brick. That has been done for us. And so I pray that this might be an encouragement to you all, especially at times when it feels that the worst of life is overwhelming us. Take heart, for Christ has faced the darkness and defeated it. And on this, we can build fabulous lives together. Amen.